So I spent the last 30 days focusing my evenings and weekends basically rewriting an application that is north of 200,000 plus lines of code. It's a little bit over there. It's about 250 when you put all the applications together. But it's safe to say 100% certainty of like core code, about 200,000 lines of code. So in this video, what I want to do is walk through my experience in rewriting an entire application in 30 days. Now, full disclosure, it's not 100% up, but this is just my raw, true experience about how much progress I've made, how I've managed to literally re-architect the entire application, my progress for swapping out the entire backend, and just showing you like the pros and cons of that entire process. So if that's something you're interested in, stick around. We'll talk about it in this video. Hopefully you'll get some value out of this video. And if you do, please can subscribe if you're interested in this type of stuff. I talk about all kinds of productivity things. Okay, let's just get right into it. All right. So just to show that I'm not BSing you in any single way, actually, let's back up a little bit. Let's talk about the actual application. I'll give you some context. So I actually run a startup. My startup is a company that basically focuses on productivity tools for construction type workers. That being said, I've recently come to the thought process that this application can actually serve a broader market. And so that's part of my reason for re-architecting things, in addition to a few other internal things that I want to start going through in this conversation. So anyway, at a very high level, the tool basically is responsible for keeping track of new calls that are coming in, calls that were dispatched, completed to be invoiced, etc. You can manage like projects. So this is a work order here with details, and there's notes, invoicing. You could do service material. It just goes on. And then you could print and preview this stuff. And one of the things that I actually pride myself on in the background of this application is that it actually literally opens up Microsoft Word, generates data onto it, and then closes it, and then gives you a PDF version. And that happened just at that time that I click that button there. These are some of the things overall of how the application works. Now, this is not a tutorial. I'm not trying to sell you on this entire product or anything. I'm just trying to tell you literally how I re-architect the entire application on the back end, just so you understand sort of details. It just goes on and on. You could do quotations in here. You could manage your clients as a full-on business management system, and the ability to manage your inventory and stuff. So that's the core. However, this application has been around for a while, and we've had varying success with it. I won't go into all that detail. This is not a conversation for it, but we've had varying success with the application across the board. So let me just give you some context on how the system is running. This application has been around for a while. So the original version was actually written in like 2012. It's been a while, and it started, just to give you some context, it started out as like an application that was like, we charge a client like $10,000 to develop it. And then fast forward, it turned into a $500,000 solution that we just kept building. And then we grew, and then we scaled down, and then we grew again, and then we scaled. It's just been a roller coaster ride in that regards. Nonetheless, the application is large, lots of complexities. We've had numerous set of developers worked with it over the years, and I've come to the conclusion that it needs a complete rewrite from the ground up. That's basically what I came to the conclusion. So that's the reason why I'm doing this, and that's the reason why we're having this conversation. Okay, hopefully I've level set enough so you can understand what's going on. And this, by the way, this is actual real world type code. So I have some notes here so I don't ramble too much. I want to be very structured and give you some sort of real, actual, tangible things. Yeah, these are my YouTube sort of potential titles. We'll decide which one actually goes out on the internet. This trading application did that before. Okay. Describe the problem. So what are the problems that we have with this application? Okay. First of all, it works fairly well today. It's a pretty fast application for what it does. So I got 3,500 records inside it here. I could come in here. I could do a filter by a specific client. I could filter by a job type or something like that. I could reset here. So this is just resetting the entire dashboard itself. I could click on what happened there? Okay. I was like, oh, it's fast. And yeah, then sure it's slow. So I click on 57 here, and now basically filter out those jobs for those new service calls, etc. So it's written in Vue on the front end, Vue.js on the front end, and on the back end, it's a .NET application, true and true. However, the original application was like in .NET 4.8. It actually started out with 3.5 or something like that, and it's worked its way up to 4.8. So it's been upgraded over the years. So this .NET framework running in the background. And then when Microsoft changed, we upgraded and we jumped on all the at ASP.NET Core stuff. And then from there, we went into Azure Functions land, and we've been sitting in the Azure Functions land for a really long time. And I have some thoughts on that, by the way, which I'm more than happy to share. But so the short answer here in terms of what are the problems is that there's lots of varying different types of technologies that span literally a decade. And as a result of that, all kinds of business ideas are just so muddy all over the place. And to add insult to injury, the API surface is just really large, So I'll give you an example when my postman comes up. But the API service is really large. We have lots and lots of different. So if you see here, we have print and billing and APIs, and it just goes on and on of all the different types of different APIs that exist. I won't go into too much here, just so you understand the context. And so I've been having these fundamental conversations around what would it take to rebuild this entire thing? What would it take to rebuild this entire thing? And one last point, and I'll jump in just a teeny bit here. I want to actually show you that I'm not BSing you when in terms of the amount of code that actually exists. So I found out that I have a PowerShell script that can actually tell you how much code is in an application. So if you run this get child recursive, every single thing that's even then you count the number of lines, it'll actually tell you. I'm not going to do it for this application here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do it for this application here, which is main application. And then I'll do it for the second one because there's two. Like I said, there's a .NET ASP.NET application, and then there's ASP .NET framework application. So that's called Project Earth. We name our projects after planets. And yes, of course, it's the PowerShell command. CD snapsuite project. There are all this stuff here. This is just I've been messing around with my terminal and I made some stupid errors. CD. Right. So just so you know that I'm not BSing you here. Okay, so the PowerShell script is going to figure out all the different CS and it's going to come back with a number. Right. So here, 114,000, right, lines of code, right? So that's in that application. And then the second one, which is Saturn. For not showing any trade secrets here. My trade secret, there's no trade secret here, but that's security information or whatever. So here I want to CD, do the same thing. And then I'm going to run the same lines of code. Come on. There. Not 100,000, right? So 214,000 if you want to just round it off in that regards, right? Lines of code. And that's just between two applications. It is actually a significantly more set of details. So just so you know, I'm not BSing you with the amount of code that's actually sitting in these two applications. Okay, so now you got that. Let me show you what I've been doing. So let's back up a little bit. So I created a brand new project and it has a few goals and I'll talk about that in a bit, but let me just give you some, just kind of level setting so everybody's on the same page in terms of what the application was doing. So insights. Actually, if I go back here, I think it shows you when it was created. So insights, probably where I'm going to go. And then code frequency or commits here. Yes. Okay. So I started on the 26th of May, 2004. Today is the 10th of July, 2004. And this has been my trajectory in terms of like code additions and deletions. Okay. So I went from 5,000 to 10,000 to 15, 50 plus 20,000. And then it tapered off a little bit as the application got a little bit larger. Okay. So now you've gotten that out of the way. Let's talk about the actual details. Let's talk about how and what I've been doing and what I've been solving and how it's been going. Great. And let's make sure I'm on track. Let me just look back at my notes so I don't, because I want to be actually a little more structured. So experience running is, yes, we want to talk about this for a bit. So I have actually had the opportunity. So my developers, I got about 8 developers that have been using it to run this application. And one of the problems is that you add a feature to the application, it just takes so much time and energy and effort to go through all the different details to figure out a problem. So I knew for sure that if I were to just hand it out to this project or entire developer, just too much time, right? So you can move faster as an individual rather than a thing. And the goal was to do one simple thing, which was to essentially build out as much infrastructure as possible, build out the infrastructure as much as I possibly can. Once I could get that infrastructure to scale and all the pieces are in place, then the developers could fit in and jump in and like hyper focus on the real details, right? And that's the core. All right. So with that, let's talk a little bit about what are some of the problems with the application. So let me give you one real world scenario right now. So let's just say I'm on the dashboard of this application and I want to create a new client, a new work order. So I'm going to reset this so we can see the whole everything. Reset. Okay, it'll come in a second. I think it's just like it is early morning here, so that was just scaled down. Click on a new work order. Okay, we'll choose anything. This is just a test database, right? So I'm going to say test description, and for YouTube, fake number. This is a fake number. It's not real data. I want to be clear with it. YouTube, this is not real data. Do not take my profile down. Every single thing in this application is fake. Sorry guys, just gotta do that for the algorithm because they're gonna label my content as being like personal information to be empty. So here, I got a new work order. Okay, and if you notice, it just came up just about a second or so. Let me just do that again. Just pay attention to this, okay? So let me just change this status. How about this? Let's just change this status from a new to something else, just so you could just keep track of the hit below. I'm going to point it to appointments. So this is should change. So let's do that again. Appointment. There we go. I was trying to get a different color outside of the orange. Let's go with completed to be invoice. So something where I know the color is completely different. Okay, so now when I click a new work order, pay attention to how long it takes for that work order below there it's hard to see, but we're going to do our best. So just pay attention here. You'll see what happens. You'll see this will shift down. And then you should see complete to be invoice here because obviously a new job is. YouTube, these are fake numbers. I just want to declare that. Fake information. Okay, click process in and just pay attention. So successfully saved. So it just went in. Okay. So there. All right. That's not bad. Nothing's wrong with that. Seems every single thing is okay in here. Okay. So now let me explain from a backend architecture standpoint what's actually happening so you can get some context of what's going on. And then why I care about rewriting this application. So first of all, the front end is written in Nux. So front end or view. V-U-E. It's pretty fast. You click and save. What's happening on the back end is a couple of things. One is when we save the information, we're doing, so it's going to an Azure function first. Okay. When it hits an Azure function, it does a couple of things. One, it goes to my favorite database, CosmoDB. I'll talk about that in another video, but CosmoDB is an Azure database. They said to you hardly. Okay. So it goes to an Azure database on the back end. And then the second thing that it does is that it drops basically that information, the fact that it's thing on the service bus. Let's call it a topic queue, right? And that's it. That's what it does. It doesn't actually put it in the database. It just sends it and it just gets an acknowledgement and it comes back that it was successful. And we do this because there's a background service that kind of sits here. Background service sits here, pulls the data off of that, and actually puts it into the database. And this is great. This architecture actually worked really well. It still works. It's proper. There's nothing really wrong with it per se, except that there's a couple of use cases that we have on the application where when you click on, and not in a work order case, but in the case of a purchase order for sure, you might have a technician that's out on the road, might be trying to get a purchase order. Again, not trying to teach you the application here, just trying to work through the details. So I'm on a work order, I'm trying to create a purchase order, which is basically to buy some materials for a particular job. That's all that's going on here, right? We're trying to buy some materials for the entire job. And now when I click on save, okay, what I actually care about for this purchase order is I actually want to give that purchase order to the guy that's on the road. And right now, there's no number that's associated with that purchase order. Now, interesting, by the time I get to this list purchase order section, there's going to be a number associated with it. Okay, so that's a new purchase order I just created. However, you go back to the diagram, there's some background stuff that needs to happen, because remember at this particular point, when it saves it to the database, think of this as just a log, right? This is a log that we can replay. When it hits the database and it hits here, it goes into the database and then it gets an ID. Okay. And that ID actually generates a number, right? Let's call it a PO number, PO. Okay. That PO number is what this user is actually waiting for. But on this screen, the screen that it created that record, it can't get it because the data is not actually in the databases yet. Now, this is happening in like seconds level, but the point is there is a delay, and that delay is actually creating some problems. So that's problem number one that I want to solve. The second problem, this kind of problem with this architecture here, is sometimes the user sends data into a database. It rarely happens, but it happens. I'm just being real here. It happens. And then sometimes, for whatever reason, the data gets here because the database is pretty solid. But then for some reason, this never picks up that process. So in other words, the data never got to the database. And the user is sitting here and they've gotten some kind of confirmation, right, that it was successful. And they're not wrong. It was successful, but it was a half success message. In other words, it went to the log, but it didn't actually go to the database itself. So that's a real problem. And we've experienced that in a couple of times. And as a result, what's happened is the users here start scratching their head, wondering why their data is not showing up on their dashboard. Okay. This is a rare thing, but it does happen. It does happen. Okay. And so as a result of that, it creates this uncertainty. Did the application work? Did it not work? It's just this kind of question mark. And the last thing you want is for your users to question whether the application worked or not. And then the last thing, which I can actually demonstrate this one, but it's along that same lines. This one annoys me, personally annoys me, because I knew exactly what's happening. So here, I want to add a note. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter. So here, I want to add a note, okay? And look at what happens when I press on the save. I'm going to click add note. You're going to see at the bottom here. It's going to add it, and then it's going to disappear, and it's going to come back again. Look at it. 3, 2, 1. See that? Okay. That annoys the hell out of me. And that's exactly what's happening as a result of this entire thing. Because what's happening is when that note actually gets committed, when the note gets committed here, and it goes here, it's saved, right? The application is sitting there. We just do pooling. So it just keeps checking the database for new data. So what happens is when you press the save button, it saves it locally in the browser for a second, but then this API makes a call at some point looking for new data, and it comes back. And then if I don't have that information in the database, so it removes this. So it disappears because it's not there as yet. And while that's happening, just for a brief second or two, that data gets picked up by the queue. The queue basically picks up that information, finally puts it into the database. So the next time it makes a call, it shows it, and then therefore it disappears, and then it shows back up again. That annoying. And it's not necessarily a big deal, but it's just so you could understand what's happening in the background. And that's why we've been focusing on re-architecturing this entire application. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to close this video off right now because it's getting too long, and I want to keep these videos a little bit more bite-sized content. And what I'll do is in the next video, I'll do a little bit more deep dive into sort of how I've rewritten the application, more the ChatGPT angle of it, like what is the process I did to rewrite the application. And then 2, what are the things that I'm improving across the board? We can talk about that in the next video, because I want to be a little bit more prescribed with the way that I'm doing these video content. Anyway, hopefully if you've gotten some value out of that, like this video, subscribe to the channel. I talk about productivity stuff. So I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a software developer, I'm every single thing. And I just got a bunch of random ideas, and I'm just putting it out on the internet. And if you're just one that's just looking for ideas on how to do things across the board, whether it's from business to personal to meetings, etc., subscribe to the channel. We'll definitely try to help you out. And feel free to drop a comment once in a while. Let me know how you're feeling about my videos. Okay, thank you. I'll see you in the next video.